Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. We're back with another Tower of God full spoilers. This time we're kicking off from episode 191 of season 2. And yeah, this is going to be a weird one because you guys are going to be seeing this on the 3rd of April, while this is actually the 19th of March for me. So you're going to be seeing this here way after it's set. So I'm actually prepping for the launch of the new episode tonight. So yeah, here goes. Well, that's tomorrow, but you get it. It's in a few hours for me. So here we go. So we kick off with the Purple Dementor fight against Yuri. Now the Purple Dementor is from the ancient days in the tower. This could be from the Genesis War. It's a period in the tower about 5,000 years ago where everybody was fighting because of Jaha taking up the role of king. So we know this is after the initial climb, but we don't know how far into the formation of Fug this is, because this is when Fug was at full-scale war with the 10 great families. And we know at this time a truce was called between the two sides, and that's how the walls of peaceful coexistence came up. So yeah, here we go with this whole story. So these old observers and the weapons from the Genesis period and the period before that, when the 10 great families were at war with each other, because there's also the 10 great families war with each other, which is in another period of the tower, which is after the initial climb, before Baum's birth, if I am 100% correct. And after Baum's birth, they still were at war. And after his death they still were at war, and soon after that period, when Arlen left the tower, is when the next set of wars started. That's when the Fug War started, and that's when Genesis would have occurred after that period. Now we don't know whether it's 10,000 years since the 13 warriors entered the tower, or it's 7 or it's 6, but whatever the case is, that is what you're looking at for this whole conflict between Fug and everybody else, right? Also with the 10 great families themselves. So this observer is either from the ancient wars before Genesis, or it is from the Genesis wars itself, and it will be of the same level. Now the Genesis war was fought between the direct descendants of the 10 great families, so direct descendants of Yurin-Ha and Ari-Ye-Hon, right? So that's Ari Bright Sharon and all of those people, those Ha's. So Yuri's upper family, that would be Jinsang Ha's parents' generation, right? That generation, they were the ones who fought in the Genesis War, direct descendants. So you would have had the Ares family, you would have had Eurasia Pobedao. So Blossom Pobedao, they would have the Pan School family, if I'm correct. That's the way it's formed, right? Those are the direct descendants of those two. Then you'd have the Yuan family, you'd have the Tuperi. I'm not sure if any of the other family heads got married to each other. You'll have Tuperi, you'll have Tramurai and Lopobia family. He had 21 descendants, if I am correct, and they were really strong. We get to see a little bit of an incident with that. So these weapons were made to fight those monsters, and they were very, very close to their parents in terms of power. They actually had the potential to match their parents in power. So yeah, you understand, these guys are at the top of power. They unbelievable. They were powerhouses to levels that you can't even hold a candle to with this generation's direct descendants. Thinking about it carefully, we do meet two direct descendants. We meet Hakuin and his siblings, which all become one to form White, and we meet Kun Aguero Agnes, who is the direct descendant. Ran is also a direct descendant, but I'm not 100% sure if he is a direct descendant or a second generation descendant, because you also have that within some of the branch families where the mother's children end up becoming the next heads of their branch, right? So there is something else to consider in this whole situation. Okay, so moving on. So these weapons were made to handle their type of strength. So someone like Yuri Ha attacking them shouldn't be something too dangerous. This is a high ranker's observer. It should be able to tolerate fighting Yuri. Now remember, Yuri is very special in the fact that she has Jahad's blood. That makes her body more durable and makes her way more powerful than she would have normally been. That's what the blood of Jahad does for an individual. So she's even more powerful than those in that generation. But everybody else is nowhere near that. She's already a high ranker. That's how come it's like this here. If this was a fight between Enderosi when she becomes a ranker, she'd be an advanced ranker more than likely immediately. But this wouldn't have been the way that it would have gone. It would have went the exact opposite way that that observer would have killed Enderosi. However, in this situation, Yuri is really, really powerful. And there Yuri goes. You see, as much as Yuri seems like a blockhead, she actually can use tactics. We've seen her use tactics many times after this year, and it's one of the reasons why people think she's a blockhead, because she loves to act recklessly. However, she can play strategy. We find out that she played strategy against her cousin. What is her cousin's name again? Chuni Ha from the 4th Quadrant, Calavan Squadron. We find out that she always played a strategy against her cousin, pulling her punches so that she wouldn't hurt her. Now that made Chuni believe that she was really weak. However, the reality was that Chuni couldn't see that she was pulling punches. Pulling punches is something that you don't want to do when you're fighting, even if you're sparring. If you're pulling punches, that means that you're losing your speed and you're losing the impact in all of your punches. It makes you seem weaker, it makes you seem a lot easier of an opponent to fight. So that's why Chuni always saw her that way. It's unnoticeable to most people because when you pull, when you go through with your punch, as it's moving forward, you're already pulling back on your arm from the moment it's released. So it's the reason why that happens. And she's doing that here in a way. Because she's reserving her power and not going all out, she also won't destroy the train or cause any problems with the administrator outside in the floor. So that is what she's trying to do, keep herself within reason. The Ha family, Shinsu Hadouken. Yuri Ha special skill, red velvet sword. Hadouken is one of the greatest ki blasts of all fiction from Street Fighter. Now I don't know why they use the ki blast as Shinsu, but nonetheless there we go. It was probably a tribute to call it Hadouken. And remember, she's still holding back. When we find her doing her full power Rose, what was it? Rose Velvet Assault. Remember, the entire station's field had to activate with the Guardian's protection, and that is what a real heavy hit is like. It was even stronger than the ignition of Cronus. And here we go. 1, 2, 3. And there's it, the nuclear punch. Now this is why she has the big brand as a knucklehead. She uses extreme brute force. This is on a level that you can't even imagine brute force. That is what Yuri is infamous for throughout the tower. It's also why she's called the Effenberg of Jahad. And yeah, let's get into this here because we need to get moving. I took a long time to give that spoiler, but let's go on with this fight. Now, there isn't a lot to break down in terms of White and his clone with the whole bomb situation, but the moment the big important parts show up, I will break it down. It's already been spoiled in the last section, so there's no reason for me to explain what's going on with the souls that she has. So yeah, that's going to come in quite handy, and it actually breaks down a lot of the suspense that we had. We didn't know what was coming, and oh yeah, something else to mention. That power is generally not attainable by people. White accomplished it by consuming souls over a tremendously long period of time. Most regular individuals can't hold that many souls in their body, because if they hold that many souls, it'll end up blowing them up or destroying their body. The reason for it is it's a administrator's power. It's called the colossal soul. That is what gives administrators their power source. So you have to understand that is what Bam is using. The same thing that the administrators of the tower do. The divine Shinwei, the floor guardians. That's how powerful this soul that he receives is. It may not be as big as theirs, because if I'm correct, theirs is hundreds of billions of times stronger. So yeah, we'll get to see this here. Oh yeah, I never ever mentioned any of this here. So Pedro already contacted this clone, the Albelda mixed with Ruina and the other souls, and made sure that she had her own freeway on this year. The reason is he was given orders by the higher ups. Remember, Grace Mashaya Lazlek is still very opposed to them doing anything against Bam. Ah man, I'm missing a scene here. I can't believe it. There are 8 bang. Whoa. There are 8 rooms is actually wrong. There are 8 bangs. How cool. That is a big thing. Remember, I've never known that he could do 8. This year I've always read as 8 rooms. I just didn't realize that it's 8 bang. Whew. And there's that souls being injected into him, right? Ooh. So we see that Pedro reveals they're gonna pour the boiling acid into the core. While this final game is on, they intended to melt Bomb regardlessly. Okay, so here we go. So we see Yuri has a lot of faith in Bomb because she knows how crazy Bomb can become. So we see they get their route to Bomb, but it's a very long route. And it's at this point that Evan is going to realize there is a route towards Bomb. Okay, so we see he should have received a tremendous shock from receiving that much of power. And we see White is worried because of the look in his eyes. He's gotten even more power now. So we see that they were around 600 years ago. Right, this is gonna be crazy. So they're really old. Okay, I really don't like this whole story on this section. The reason is because it becomes so weird. The reason why it's so weird is it actually contradicts some things that they've already said about the whole situation. Nobody is supposed to know who was going to be sacrificed. Ruina said she's going to be the sacrifice. Nobody talked her out of it, but nobody expected her to do it. So what the heck was that all about? $10 are to open the submarine, and both of them are at $20 now. If Harkon really wants to settle this, he'll probably go down this time. Who do you think will win? There we go. Big sword styles. I really love this fighting style that White deploys. And remember I said Bomb can copy any technique, and here's the first time we get him using the irregular technique that he uses. We see that he uses his own sword craft to beat him. Now here's the big problem. If both of them had $20, they could only go down at the count of 10. So this fight had to be in a 10 counter, but we get a bigger fight than that, so I really don't get what happened here. As I said, this section has way too much of problems in inconsistency. If they both have $20, they need 10 to open the submarine. That means they both have to jump down at 10. They both jumped at 20, so they had 0. So that means they couldn't open the submarine. That means Miss Sang should have been dead. Bam really cost it there big time. The moment he tried to save everybody, he should have been aiming at about 5 for his enemy with 10. That gives him 15 to each enemy, and he should have been aiming at 10 and 10 for his, so 20. He would have done 40 for his guys, which is a quick and easy, and he would have done 30 for his enemies. No, sorry, 45 for his enemies. That would give him 85. That will still give him 15 points to win the game. He didn't think that at the end of this year one of them is going to die, because they're going to melt him into the thorn to get the thorn again if he loses. Honestly, this is one of the only places where I have a major criticism. I don't think SIU thought out the implications of the way that he made Bam sacrifice everything. He should have made it become clear that Bam was trying to save his life along with all of this. Remember, he had to keep more Dala than his enemy. Otherwise, everybody is dead. Bam literally sacrificed 6 people's lives for all his friends and keeping his enemy at full strength. Bam literally was the biggest idiot in all of the tower for this one little situation. He's lucky that White was an even bigger idiot and jumped down to go and stop him. We see what all this was for. Love. Love makes people do really stupid things. And here's White floating at the bottom. He's thinking about his father and how his father was always just the back that he could never conquer. So Arya Han is the Arya big sword family. Arya Han is the spear like sword family from within them, right? It's so complicated. It's easier to remember them by Bright Sharon and White. Makes it so much simpler to remember those two families. So here comes the big explosion with the acid being dropped in, and we find out that Rachel decided to play a little nasty trick again. Boiling acid. She hasn't yet told Bam everything, but Yuraha is gonna pull an escape move over here. Here's the big thing. At this point, Yuraha should be out of everything. Remember, they just won a lucky break, and she can only transport 2 people with a teleport. So she can't really pull everybody here. That was already explained earlier. That's why she abandoned the rest of the team and only took Chanwa with her. However, at this point she puts White in her bag. Then she, Rachel... This is what I just don't get. She and Rachel also teleport. So she teleported herself and Rachel, and White managed to go with just by chance. That shouldn't have happened. She would have to have chosen between the two and jumped. She should have chosen Rachel and disappeared, and it should have been without White. White should have escaped during this period, floating through the melting fluid or whatever it is. They're already enemies. I don't know what's that nonsense that you're saying. And here we go. Evan figures out that there's a way to save the boy. The acid that's flowing there flows right below their feet, but it could hurt their bodies, right? Because if they don't use Shinsu, because they can't use it in regular areas, they might get hurt with this liquid. So we see that Yuri has that happy-go-lucky attitude when it comes to Bam. But you should understand one thing. Yuri is generally a very, very good person. Her will to defend what is right with whatever means is necessary is what makes her a good person. A lot of people will believe it's saving the bad guy. Saving the bad guy is a new ideology. Just remember that there. The reality is you defeat the bad guy, and that's how you go along with your plans. So here they go. We see that Kun ends up getting saved by the sweet fish here in a few seconds. So here everybody is, and they see that Wariyun somehow managed to get some view of her sight back. Also, yet another big mistake. The fact that she could see that something was going to happen is a shock. Right? It doesn't make sense. On the train, guides lose their power. They can't see the future on the train. We know that already, and this here is like a violation of all of this. Maybe it's because the administrators broke the rules, so the admins, the guardians opened up the parts on the train for a few seconds. Remember, they end up breaking the spell on the train that relinquishes it from their protection when they go to the hidden floor. But right now, whatever it was that would have to have undid it is just something I can't understand. Maybe it's Yuri's intervention that does this. And there's her little bubbles that we see her use later in fights. And here's Yuri using her monster strength to hug Bam. And there we go, the hiatus stories from the past. Now, to be honest, the big shortfalls and the big story holes are in the past. They aren't that big, really, but it's the first time that I actually had something to say on the criticism. The reason is he made the game too complicated. Here's the reality. Playing the dollar game the way that he did, remember they get 10 points back for every time they go down. He has 135 points. So 40 points per player, fantastic. He can go all the way up to 45. So he jumps down at 35 on the first one, he pulls in 10 points. He's not thinking about winning the game because he needs points after that to be able to beat White. White has a limited 35 points. That means he can open the submarine 3 times. He has to jump down for 2, 1. You understand, he literally has to pull it off with as little time as possible, and all they have to do is raise the level and White will be dead. So that was the reality behind it. They didn't want to give White a chance to actually survive. They didn't want to give White a chance to actually lose. Bam's big mistake over there was the fact that he wanted to beat them. Remember, it was said right in the start of the game, if you have no dollar, you lose. Bam was willing to go to $0. That makes him an absolute fool in context of the whole story. And the fact that he wasted that 20 to rescue the last person means that he wasn't thinking. Immediately, the moment he decided he's going to save everybody, he should have started thinking logically. Bam is a very intelligent person. We saw him do that there with Yura. So the first thing he should have thought is, I've already spent 45 and now I'm going to be saving everybody else. So let's think about it. 45 minus my 35, I have 95 left. I've got 5 times to go down. How do I do this here? It's 50 that's already gone, so I only have 45. So I need to break this up. 9 divided by 5. My enemy is going to get 30. So yeah, I'm not going to go 45. I'm going to say 15 because that way the enemy can't get more than me no matter what. Okay, I'm going to try and do it at 5 or 10 per turn. I'll try and antagonize White until he jumps down to fight me. White didn't have to go down at all because of Bam's nature, and White would have won. With his little 35, he would have ended up at the winning at 65 at the end of all of this. So yeah, it was a big mistake on their part to not have White behave rationally. If White had behaved rationally and didn't jump down to fight Bam, it would have made more sense, and Bam would have to have thought of how to win. Remember, in that case, he'd have to make sure that he is keeping 40 points at all costs at the end of the game. His big blunder would have been the first round, which would have been perfect. It would have been pushing him right to the edge of his limits. That 50 plus he has to keep 40 points. That would mean he'd have 5 points altogether to spend. And he'd have to give up one of the hostages. You know, something really painful to do. But honestly, the way they did it was just not called for. They made Bam sacrifice everybody's lives for that one life. Honestly, I say you could have overdone it a little bit, given Bam maybe 160 points at this point and altered the tables just a little bit to be in his favor. But he didn't do that, and at the end of the day, there was a big, massive loss on all of this. So yeah, I'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good day.